everybody, welcome to Divots and Skins. We're back again this week to talk to you about golf news, tour stops, and where we've been golfing. So what do you got in golf news?
Well, the big news of the week, it almost overshadowed the Open Championship overseas. Ryan Fox from New Zealand won that, as a lot of people know. That's his first major win. He does have a lot of win on a bunch of different tours. He's won a fair amount of prize money over the course of his career. A 39-year-old player, but for the most part, he's lived his golf career in relative anonymity. But the big news of the week was Bryson DeChambeau's little, we'll call it dust up on a hole at the same tournament. And like I said, it almost overshadowed, the winners and the fact that it, came down to the last, day and the last few holes.
Yeah, so DeChambeau decided to take a little dance in the grass, and I would say the rules officials were not too happy with that little dance that he took in the grass. Now, I've watched the video. It's very controversial whether he purposely put down the grass to help his swing, because it wasn't really like it's an improved lie rule, but it wasn't really something that I felt like he was improving his lie. He was improving his swing. So they basically came in after the round. That's the thing I didn't realize. When I first saw the news, I thought it was happening in real time, and no, it happened afterwards. They came to him afterwards and said, we're giving you a 2-point or a 2-stroke addition because of improving your lie, is what the rule actually says. But it wasn't really improving his lie, it was improving his backswing, is really what it came down to. And so they went out and they tried to show him what happened. He tried to fight it. Typical DeChambeau antics and things like that. But it was really interesting because a lot of the camera angles, I personally don't think he was doing it on purpose, but that's what's really interesting about the rule. So tell people about the rule, that it doesn't matter.
The rule's pretty cut and dry. No one from the Golf Association, the Rules Committee, I'm sorry, nobody felt as though he had done it advertently. They said it was inadvertent, but it's a very cut and dry rule. That's why I don't think it should be very controversial. If you're doing something to improve your lie or to improve your swing path, essentially in this case, he was in some very tall, wild grass. Obviously, a club's going to hang in that stuff really bad on your downswing. As strong as a golfer he is, it's still going to affect the outcome of his stroke. And from my vantage point, you and I differ on this a little bit. From my vantage point, I've watched 6 or 8 different angles of him deciding what he's going to hit and how he's going to hit it and so on and so forth. In my mind, I'm 100% certain. He can call me and challenge me otherwise, but I don't understand why he had to walk back and forth a half a dozen times over the path of where he was going to be swinging the club to decide how and what club he was going to use, how he was going to swing, and to end up with the best result. So unfortunately, the committee, I say unfortunate because I never like to see somebody lose strokes due to a penalty. But in this case, the rule clearly states even if it's inadvertent improvement of your swing path or your swing lie, it's still a 2-stroke penalty. So he had to incur it just like anybody else would.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The part that I didn't really like was his attitude when it happened. And I think he kind of pulled himself back from it, where he was like, well, if that's the case, I'm going to drop out. Now, I'm sorry, but you're a professional, or you should be, and you should act like a professional. Take the 2-stroke penalty, move on, play the rest of the weekend, do what you got to do. Nobody's happy about it. I'm sure the rules officials aren't happy about having to do that. But to kind of like throw a tantrum and be like, I'm not going to play the rest of the weekend, that to me is part of what sometimes I have a problem with DeChambeau and some of the other players that have this like prima donna attitude. So I was not really happy with seeing that. I was super happy to see him have fun with it later. He did put out some, I guess, X tweet, whatever the hell they are now. But he did put some stuff out where at one point it was him floating above the grass as the officials were trying to explain to him what was going on. But I think the one that really really got me and got me laughing was the fact that, and I don't know what day it was, but as he was walking back into some tall grass, he kind of made a motion like he was going to weed whack the grass. So I was glad to see that at least he was having some humor in it. But that initial, like, hey, I'm going to throw a tantrum and like be upset about it and not play the rest of the tournament. Come on, man. You're an adult, you're a pro. Stop doing stuff like that because that is not good for golf. It's not good for you and your brand. And that's probably what upset me more. The grass and the stomping of the grass and stuff like that. I don't think that any of us would have really realized what we were doing. But then again, we're amateurs and we don't know all the rules. It is funny though, because one of the things that I saw brought up was in the internet invitational that happened last year, Paige, a female golfer, was kind of doing the same thing. And there was a controversy around that where she was stomping around this guy's ball and she was looking for the ball. And we're all like, I don't know. You were stomping awful hard for looking for the ball. So obviously it can happen to amateurs as well. But again, the antics is what gets me. Rules are rules. Sometimes you're not going to like them. Sometimes they're going to bite you in the butt. But to say I'm not going to play the rest of the weekend, that bothered me more than anything.
Well, and they call Bryson, a lot of people, golf analysts will call him the mad scientist because he's very much an analytics, a numbers guy. He's a very intelligent human being. He knows the rules inside and out. That's why for him to be surprised by it, for him to act like he was awestruck that they're calling him on this penalty when it was very clear to see that although he might call it inadvertent, I call it, completely intentional in my opinion. But regardless, even if he called it inadvertent, well, I had to walk around in the grass. Well, it doesn't matter. You still created the swing improvement. The other thing I didn't like is, to Jake's point, as far as, threatening to bow out of the tournament and withdraw. For those of you at home who don't know, the number of volunteers that go into these tournaments is incredibly high. And they're volunteers that do a million different things. And there's a huge trickle-down effect from each person that ends up withdrawing out for injury or withdrawing out for any other reason. In this case, he would have been withdrawing because he's pouting about the rules. I'm not cool with that. I don't think it's a good idea at all. But your fellow players as well. You're going to hear a lot of grief from some of them over something like that because they can't finalize tee times for the following days and who the pairings are going to be until they know who's in the tournament. So if somebody's, on the fence about withdrawing and they have to wait till later in the day, that means these guys mentally can't start preparing themselves for who they're going to be paired up with in the following day. I loved, for those of you at home who don't know, Jake and I have talked a little bit about it. Rory McIlroy, the number 2 or 3, whatever he is ranked at this point in the world, the golfer, he was one of the few that came out and said when he was sitting in the clubhouse with some of the other golfers, they were like, oh, wait a minute, you can't do that. They knew immediately that he was violating the rules. And he made no qualms about saying in a post-match interview, Rory, that he's not a fan of Bryson DeChambeau. He said he's not going to defend him. And speaking of defending, a lot of the people, Scotty Scheffler was one of them, and there were a couple others whose names I'm not going to remember off the top of my head, but they came out and said, Bryson knows the rules. He would not intentionally cheat the game. And I think that's where things got lost in translation. They were very specific. The rules people at the Open Championship were very specific in the way they worded it, that he inadvertently did it. So at no point did they claim that he intentionally cheated the rules. They said that he did something that violated the rules unintentionally, inadvertently. So I don't think it was necessary for Scotty Scheffler or anybody else to come to his defense in that case because it's a simple rule of the game that got applied to him just like it would to anybody else. Do I think there's a chance out there that they might have applied it to him a little bit more vigorously or might have been watching him with a more careful looking glass than they would somebody else that's more popular? And by popular, you got to understand there's different types of popularity. There's popular because you're a great golfer, and there's also popularity because you're notorious. And notorious isn't always a good thing. Notorious can be bad, and in Bryson's case, I do think he has a fair number of people that he rubs the wrong way.
Yeah, and I think that there was a big discussion, and this is why it's such a great discussion because it very much has the internet divided, the golf community divided as to what happened and was the ruling correct and stuff. But I think looking from the outside, I think at first DeChambeau might have felt like, oh, you're calling me a cheater. And that's why he got upset. And I can understand that. And I think the ruling needed to be very, very clear that this was not a, hey, we felt you cheated. It was, hey, we felt you did something to improve your lie or improve your swing. Not that you did it on purpose, not that you did it by cheating, but that it doesn't matter because that's the rule, which I think is such an interesting rule because it doesn't matter if you do it on purpose or you don't do it on purpose, which I guess, yeah, you can make a mistake and step on some areas that you shouldn't, and it improves things. But I do find it really interesting that Rory came out and said some stuff. And one of the things he said is he's like, I don't really like the antics. Rory is not really one to come out and say anything about antics because he's had his own problems in the past. But that's what makes this such a great discussion because it's really got the golf community divided. It's got the internet divided, and there's people on both sides of things. And I think I was really, really glad to see that DeChambeau did not withdraw. He did not like have an attitude the rest of the weekend. He actually poked fun at himself the rest of the weekend, and he had a good turnout. And I don't remember, he finished 4th, 5th, something like that.
A little bit lower than that. He had a last half of the last day, if I remember right. He struggled a little bit on keeping it on the fairway or anything remotely close to normal part of the golf course, and so he dropped down the leaderboard a little bit, but still finished, very, very well overall.
Yeah, so that was the big thing in the news this past week, and we're actually going into the next tournament where we're very happy to report that Scotty's actually playing well. I know it's shocking. It's early in a tournament, and Scotty's actually what, 4 or 5 under?
6 under.
6 under? 6 under. He's not like in 60th place or whatever he likes to do normally. So it was funny because we had a discussion today while we were playing that we were talking about the fact that Scotty has nothing to be upset about. He won early in the season. He won one of the first tournaments in the season, or the
American Express tournament.
Yeah,
his first tournament of the year.
Yeah, his first tournament of the season. He's come in second in a slew of tournaments and made a ton of money. And I think you were saying, if you look at the average of his score, he's still number 1 in the world.
His scoring average on the PGA Tour is number 1 this year.
So he's got nothing to be upset about. I think as fans, we're just not happy he hasn't won again. And so I'm super happy to see that he's doing really well this tournament. Hopefully it holds out. Hopefully he can run away with it because I'd love to see that. But man, he has had an interesting season because it looks bad on numbers and on paper. But man, I really don't think the numbers and the paper in his bank account are hurting at all. I think he's doing okay. So what else have we been up to?
Well, we did a little golf trip that we combined with the podcast. We were headed out to Turning Stone to do a resort and casino. Beautiful golf facility out there as well. They have a whole slew of golf options to golf on their facility. And on our way out, we stopped and did a little challenge, you against me, on the golf course. How'd that go?
Yeah, so we stopped at Fox Run in Johnstown, New York, and we got up super early. We left here at 5:30 a.m., and we had the very first tee time of the day. That's an interesting experience in itself, to be able to go out, nobody in front of you, nobody in the parking lot, like nobody there. We got there, and it was funny because the woman at the front desk was like, oh, I got to open up because there's people here. So we got there super early. It was a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous day. We have been dealing with some really, really bad smoke thanks to the Canadians who seem to want to burn their forest down. But we have been dealing with some really bad smoke the last week or so, and it kind of cleared up for Friday and then into the rest of the weekend. And so it was absolutely gorgeous. We got there, we started out. You weren't hitting great.
No.
That's the only reason. Like, I know where he is as a handicap and where I am as a handicap. If I'm tied with him, something's going on with him. And so we played, we got done with 18, and we both looked at each other and went, ooh, we both shot a 92, which I was super happy about. Don't think he was, but shot a 92. Luckily, there was nobody else behind us, so we turned around and did a hole 18 again, and I actually think I played 18 better the second time than I did the first time, because I shot over that dog leg left over the trees and put it almost identically to where I had it on my second shot going in the first time, but on the other side of the fairway. So it was an absolutely great shot. Then he and I looked at each other, okay, we both parred 18, we're still tied. Let's go into the clubhouse, make sure they're okay if we continue to do playoff holes. We went in, or you went in, and what did they say to you?
She was so accommodating. I was so happy. But anyway, when I went back in to ask if we could replay a hole, she said, well, why don't you go out on hole 10, she said, and if there's somebody in front of you, she said, let them hit first. And well, we ran into a twosome that came up behind us. There was a foursome in front of us and a twosome behind us when we hopped on hole 10. And I think we had the best hype man ever.
Oh, that guy was amazing. So we get up on the hole, and he's like, oh, you want to join us? Or the other way around, I can't remember. And we were like, yeah, absolutely. And he was like, all right, so what's going on? We're like, well, we're only going to play a couple more holes because we've already done our 18. These are kind of playoff holes. And he's like, oh, really? And he's like, so what's your handicap? And I was like, it's about 20. And he's like, well, what's his handicap? And I was like, probably about 13, 14. And he's like, oh, so he gave you a bunch of strokes. And I was like, no. I said, we're tied based on just regular score. And he goes, oh man, that is awesome. He goes, I can't wait for you to beat him. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like he reminded me of the guy at Travelers who kept going, woo!
Yes.
Every time.
Yeah, the parking lot guy.
That's exactly what he was like until I screwed up. Then he was totally against me because I hit a decent drive on 10, got kind of tucked over to the right underneath these trees. And I was like, all right, I just got to punch out. Duffed it, only went a couple yards forward, hit the next shot, shanked it into the woods. And all I remember is coming up to the green after I hit my drop. And he's like, gee, open the door much? And I was like, wait, what happened to my hype man? My hype man totally went reverse on me.
He was like a WWE wrestler. He flipped a switch and something happened. And all of a sudden he's rooting for me and rooting against you.
Yeah. But he was awesome. We had a great time. But I will say that course is absolutely gorgeous. It is definitely a grip it and rip it course because we really enjoyed hitting our drivers on that course.
Well, you enjoyed it. I sprayed mine everywhere.
Well, you had a couple. They're at that one where I was like, that's not the right direction. But overall, it's a much wider course than Brookhaven. Doesn't take much, honestly, to be wider than Brookhaven.
My front door is wider than Brookhaven.
Yes, exactly. So it was fun to play that course. But I will tell you that we told the woman at the front desk, like, hey, we do a podcast. And we explained to her that we were stopping there to head out to Turning Stone to do interviews, which we'll talk about in a second. And she was like, oh, that's awesome. We gave her a card for our podcast. She's like, oh, that's amazing. And then you accommodate us to be able to play that additional playoff hole. Thank God we didn't have to go anymore. That's why I lost that one. Yeah, maybe. But when we came back in to let her know, because I was like, we got to let her know how it went. So we let her know how it went. And she was like, hold on a second. Let me introduce you to the owner. She literally took us to the owner who was working with somebody at their indoor bay. And I think he was fitting somebody for clubs. And she's like, hey, these two guys have a podcast. They just came up to play for the day and they're heading out to Turning Stone. I want to introduce you. So I think that's awesome that she went out of her way to accommodate us to be able to do 2 playoff holes, but also accommodate us in the fact that she knew we had a podcast and we got introduced to the owner. So I want to say a special shout out to, I believe it's Rich. If it's not Rich, it's Rick, but I believe it's Rich at Fox Run. We really appreciate the way you guys treated us at that course. And we've played there before once a couple years ago, and we absolutely loved that course. And I got to tell you, I haven't stopped talking about that course since we got back. I told everybody I've played with recently that that's a course they need to go out and play. Yeah, it's a little bit of a trip, but it's worth it. One, the course price is reasonable. The beer prices are reasonable. the shirt prices are reasonable.
I bought another shirt.
Yes, you cannot keep him away from a reasonable shirt price.
And they were Under Armour.
Yes.
Under Armour shirts, the dry fit Under Armour shirts for a super reasonable price. You got to go to this place, man. It's Johnstown, New York.
Yeah, Johnstown, New York.
Gloversville's nearby. Amsterdam's nearby. If you're in any of those places, Broadalbin, Perth is not too terribly far away. And there's a bunch of other small towns out there. They also convert, I don't know if you remember the owner telling us that they convert a big portion of the clubhouse in the wintertime. They convert it to golf simulators.
Yes.
I think he said 4 or 5 simulators they have set up during the wintertime. They do all kinds of leagues and other competitions at the simulator, that's really cool that they have found a way to make it a year-round go of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there will be a link to that site in the description. Anytime we talk about a golf course that we went to or we absolutely love, there will be a link in the description. Now, I will tell you that it was the first stop on a very long day, but we were on our way to Turning Stone. Now, it's funny because we decided that we were going to sit out the Albany Region Turning Stone event that Don was putting on, and then there's a 2-day event that was going on the weekend. I decided based on the way I was playing, I was not going to put that kind of money up for a tournament, but that was my choice. And we got talking, and Don was like, hey, I've got 115 golfers coming in for my tournament. We went, what? And he's like, oh yeah, they're from everywhere. And we were like, how? The 2-day tournament is obviously, I think, the anchor for it. And then the Friday one is kind of like the, hey, come and play all 3 courses. So we decided, what a great opportunity. Don obviously was in our back of our ear going, hey, like, this is a great opportunity. So we decided to head out, and we made that stop at Fox Run. And then about 12:30, 1 o'clock, we got to Turning Stone to see the guys that were the champ flight just starting to come off the course so that we could interview them. Now, what the heck's the name of the course?
Atunyo.
Nope, the other one. The
Kahlua,
yeah. Atunya is the one that's really, really nice. If you get a chance to play that, that is a spectacular course. But they call it the K course because nobody really likes to have to try to figure out how to pronounce that. So the K course, they were coming off that. The champs were coming off just as we got there. And so the idea was Don always takes a photo, or the USAM Tour always takes a photo of the champ flight winner with their trophy, the senior champ flight with their trophy. And we were like, you know what? What a great opportunity for us to interview these guys and share with them that we have the podcast, but more importantly, help Don promote the USAM Tour. And so we got to interview, or you got to interview, I filmed, he interviewed everybody, and it was a great time. We had a blast doing that.
So many different personalities.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing about the USAM Tour is it's such a melting pot. We had a winner from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
We had a winner from Alberta.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. It was great to see all different nationalities, people of different dialects, people of every shape and size you could possibly think of, old and young. There were some of the older guys that went on the regular tour. It was a lot of fun to see.
And it was really cool because not only did we get to see somebody from Canada, somebody from Puerto Rico, but we got to see guys from all over the country. And what I found really interesting in the interviews is many of the winners, this was not their first time there, except for the guy who won the champ flight. This was his very first time playing that course.
Yep.
That's impressive. And then he came in second for the 2-day event. That's really impressive.
And he shot lights out both days.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Kyle Sigmund. He's the winner of our USAM Tour stop here today. Beautiful Turning Stone Resort, the Kahlua course. How'd it go today for you?
It was good. Come out of the gate, birdie first hole, then doubled and birdie, bogey, eagle. Like, it was a typical Jordan Spieth round to start off.
We know all about that. We watch a lot of golf. What were the course conditions like?
It was good. The course is in phenomenal shape, well maintained. So
You're from Chula Vista, California, I heard?
Yes,
How do our courses, this course, compare to what you have out there?
A little different, a lot greener. Obviously, you guys get rain out here. Different types of green, grass on the greens. You know, they bent grass here. We play a lot of Poana out there. So
You had a tight battle pretty much all day, it looked like.
Yeah, and it was just neat to like meet all of these different golfers from all over the country that they look at this tournament, this 3-day thing. Granted, the 1-day is a Albany region event, but the 2-day is a bigger regional event. They look at this as a non-negotiable, and actually, I think it was Jonathan said that in his interview, that that's why they come up from Puerto Rico. It is a non-negotiable. This is the tournament that they come to.
Yeah, the course they played the first day for the 1-day tournament, and just so people are clear that are listening, we talk of regions and then we talk of regionals, and it could probably get a little confusing, and I never thought to explain that to people until just now when I heard Jake saying it. So your region is just essentially your home territory, and there's different tour directors for those regions all throughout the country. Puerto Rico, Canada doesn't have their own. He comes down, if I remember right, he said he plays in the Buffalo region. If my memory serves me right, that's where he normally plays. But regardless, all of those regions have their own tour stops, and they're all 1-day events. And then they have regional events, which essentially brings people from all neck of the woods from all over the country, and those are usually 2-day events. They coordinated doing a 1-day Albany region event and a 2-day regional event. That's how we ended up with 3 days at Turning Stone. The beauty of it is Turning Stone has 3 top-tier courses. The one they played the first day, I was about to say, is considered the second hardest course in New York State. And the only one that's harder is Bethpage Black down on Long Island, which we did have some representation from that area. But anyway, it's a very, very difficult course. It's not a rip it and rip it course. It's a place your shot where you want it type of course. Don't worry about the distances and stuff like that. Set yourself up for the next shot type of course, if you will. So it was good to see.
Well, and that's what you were just saying about the placing it. There was a gentleman that we interviewed, and I'm sorry, I am horrible with names. I cannot remember, but he said it is a target course. And I thought that was a great way to describe it. It is, you have to pick a target and you have to go after that target. You do not want to be in the rough. You do not want to be in the sand. You do not want to be off the fairway. You need to pick a target on the fairway, and that's where you want to be. And I thought that was a great way to describe it. He also said that, and it's funny because we always talk about you have a good day on the driving range, doesn't always translate to a good day on the course. But he said, I had a really good range time, felt really good about that. Went to the putting green, felt really good about that, and I felt really good going into the day, and he won. So it can happen. I don't think it happens for me most of the time, but it can happen. So it was really interesting to hear that interview as well. So before I forget, we will have a link. So I have put up a video of the 8 interviews that we've done. We have 4 more placements that we haven't interviewed yet. 2 of them have reached out to me. And if you're seeing this and you haven't reached out to us and you won one of the Jones flights or the Tiger flights, please reach out to us because we'd love to interview you. But the first 8 that we did in person at Turning Stone are now live on YouTube, and I'll put a link to that in the description. They're great. It's just awesome to hear these guys, and you almost forget they're amateurs the way they were talking on the interviews, because they're talking about like playing it safe. They're talking about staying out of the rough. They're talking about the greens. Like, it really felt like we were interviewing people that were above